Welcome, folks, to episode 130 of the Morgue, an official CorpseFeed podcast. And I am Arturo, Padilla, the guy behind the face. And with me always is Mr. Nick Valdez. Tex, how are you, man? How you doing today?
Oh, man. Howdy, everybody. Howdy, Arturo. Unfortunately, we do have to start off on some bad news this week. You know, we are mourning the loss of one of the biggest icons in voice acting and performing. And, you know, we lost to Batman, Kevin Conroy, who has passed away, after long bouts of fighting with cancer and terrible shit like that. So it sucks. That's a big one, for like, and I know you're in that same boat, right? Where it's like we
grew up with that voice. Yeah, legit. We grew up with that voice since the dawn of the Batman animated series show back in the day on WB. And ever since then, he's been pretty much the voice of Batman in anything animated that there has to be on television or on VOD, on all that stuff. He was Batman, they
Batman.
Grabbed a couple of upscale names sometimes for their animated movies, but they always came back to Mr. Conroy all the time because that was just the voice. And then just like Mark Hamill did with the Joker, that just became Batman, and it really sucks, man. It sucks. He was young. He had a lot of time left to give if there was for him,
Right. Yeah.
It really does suck though, man. You know what? Fuck cancer. Seriously.
Yeah, it sucks.
Yeah.
It's just
it really does
terrible.
Suck.
It's a terrible situation, and we send our condolences, our thoughts, and our love to his friends, family, and loved ones at this time. It's a tough time, so go check out some Batman animated stuff, check out Conroy's performances, and just kind of celebrate the legacy he left behind, right? So moving on to more brighter notes, our coming attractions. We are in the fall season, everybody. We got through all the horror stuff. We took a little break before getting into like the winding down the rest of the year. So the releases are slowing down, but at the same time, this is when we're starting to think about the wrapping up the year, right? We're like, okay,
correct.
You're the last couple of contenders to be like, okay, is this going to be a best of the year? Is this going to be
exactly. The releases are slowing down, but now we're getting a bit more upscale releases in terms of studio and people running for Oscars and all this stuff. So hopefully that brings quality stuff, right? That being said, Tex, first up on our coming attractions today is one that I'm surprised they continued, but of course they would, because it brings in the money. John Wick 4 is coming out in 2023, spring 2023, I believe. And I haven't seen the entirety of John Wick 3 itself, but John Wick 4 looks pretty cool. In terms of the take it's taking, in terms of the take that it's using, it looks a little bit different this time in terms of
see, that's the other thing. I don't think so. I disagree completely.
It looks more like a game. Is he like playing a death game or something, or what's going on?
That's probably what it is. It's probably like set up to be like if you're hunting, you got to be hunted this way or something like that. But like, that's also what part 3 was. He was being hunted by everybody.
It was.
So now
I think that's why I stopped watching.
Now he's got to be hunted by one guy, or he's got to kill one guy in like a singles combat. I believe that's what they said. So they are, maybe it is setting up as more of like a gamified thing. But at the same time, though, Arturo, I disagree that it looks any different. So like I'm watching this trailer, it looks cool. Chapter 4, everybody who's into it, go see it, do all that. But like after part 3, I was done. After part 2, I was done. After the first
part
one,
1, I was done.
Yeah,
because it's something that honestly, it should have been like excuse me, it should have been like a Boondock Saints kind of thing. I'm not a big fan of Boondock Saints, but it was one of those movies that lived in like this cult like air for the longest time. It would have been dope if John Wick 1 just stayed at that like John Wick. I wish it just stayed at 1. I hate the fact that like it's at 4 now.
yeah, it's blown up to be this huge thing that it honestly shouldn't have been. And each movie, they're doing all these stunts, and like good for Keanu Reeves. It's one of those things where it's like, in the very same way that, we gave leeway to like Schwarzenegger and Stallone to do all that wild stuff in the 80s, just do a bunch of rando movies, right? I give John Wick the same kind of, like, I give Keanu the same kind of leeway where it's like, if you're making these, they're still making money, they're still paying you to do these, then do them. So I give them all the credit in the world. Keep doing what you're doing it. I might not go see it in the theater. I might, we'll see where we're at next year. But it's just, it's not super exciting to me. It's not. So
what's funny too, because before we move on, just a quick Keanu thing. Like he's super interested in like all these like martial arts stuff. And I've seen some of the other like stuff that he's done on the side, which I think, hey, Keanu, just I know you're doing this John Wick stuff, but it'd be cool to see a bit more of that original like martial arts things. He was in this Netflix movie where he was like the final boss. I forgot what the name of it, man.
It was Man of Tai Chi. So that one was his experiment, and it didn't go anywhere. So now he's doing 4 John Wick movies, and like,
listen, there's a lot worse on Netflix, so.
And then in that same vein too, that's also one of those things where he does a lot of these side projects out of nowhere that he just kind of signs on for, like Toy Story. He was in that Super Pets movie. He was in it was that Ali Wong romantic comedy. He was in there for like a second in that Netflix movie, and like so. And he's also like coming back in a new Constantine. Like they're gonna do a new Constantine sequel with him in it.
They are. So they are actually, and that's
the thing. It's
for him.
It's just one of those things. I guess it's like you keep plugging out John Wicks, and you can do whatever you want. So good for Keanu Reeves. Glad he's having like this little booming career. These movies themselves, I'm like, okay, I'm good. Enjoy yourself.
What do you think of him coming back as Constantine, Tex? Like the whole idea, like being that,
I don't mind that at all.
We've spoken DC in the past, and this is a DC property. It's kind of surprising. It's another one of those surprising, green lights that Warner Brothers gave out, right? So I'm just curious where that fits in the whole. I'm curious about that because I was a fan. So.
Yeah, now that James Gunn is like overseeing everything, and Peter Safran too, so it's like we'll see if they're still going to do that Constantine. They probably should, like now's the time to like bring it back and be like, it also exists in the same universe as like whatever is going on, right? So that's not that hard to do. So we'll see where that goes. I could imagine a worse Justice League Dark to hinge somebody on, like True. It's like, Keanu as like a, the Constantine for like a team, like a Justice League Dark movie or whatever. I can see that working. Put him with like some other, so like it'd be smart to just roll with it that way. Like, why not? Right. Like,
yeah, exactly.
What do we have to lose?
At this point, right? At this point, especially how James Gunn treats his characters and how he likes to just put stuff on screen that's very visually attractive, and that's all there for him now, especially with the stories that Constantine brings with him and all the characters and all the colorful kind of environments that he's in. He can do his own like little Doctor Strange adjacent kind of ambiance, environment, horror kind of DC thing. So
why not? Right? Why not?
Yeah. Why not?
I bet Keanu would be down for it, right? So why not? So moving on, speaking of wild and mystical stuff, Wendell Wild, the Henry Selick movie, who Henry Selick directed Nightmare Before Christmas, famously, but Tim Burton always gets the credit for it because he has the name stamped on it,
Yeah,
but
of course.
Selick, he is the one who Selick is the one who directed the movie, created directed Coraline and like a bunch of other good stuff since then. And you haven't had a chance to see it, right, Arturo?
No, I haven't had the
No,
opportunity, unfortunately. But Tex, wait for it, pay for it, stay away from it.
it's a
What
wait
say
for
you?
it. Yeah,
Okay.
it's a wait for it. Yeah, it's on Netflix. Go check it out if you want. Also, if you don't see it, I don't. It's tough because it's stop motion. It's a stop motion animation movie where it's like
Yeah.
it's for kids, but there's a lot of dark stuff in it. Like there's a lot of it's that 90s kid stuff where it's like there's a lot of
Yeah.
death.
I
There's a
got
lot
big
of like
Paranorman vibes when I saw the trailer.
yes, that's exactly it. Like
Okay.
it's dealing with like these heavier ideas, but not necessarily like too dark that it's not still like a magical adventure kind of thing.
Mm,
There's like demons and hell and death and like it's very open about these things and
okay.
it's a cool movie. It's got like cool designs, cool little cast. Not like all the way solid performances.
Hmm.
That the person they get for the main girl is a little rough around the edges in terms of like voice acting. So that's kind of the thing. And like it's a solid movie. Like ultimately that's what it is. It's a solid movie. It's kind of perfect for Netflix. If you didn't check it out over the Halloween holiday, maybe you should check it around, before the end of the year so you can see another good stop motion animation movie. But like, I think you're okay.
Yeah.
It's good. It's solid. It's a fun little time, but not necessarily like fun either. Like
I
it's
totally
not,
understand. Yeah, I got you. All right. It's all a work
yeah,
watch, you know.
it's like it's okay. Like comparing it, it's not like Leica stuff, so it's like it's hard to compare, because it's no Paranorman. It's no like Paranorman was like interesting right off the bat, and Wendell Wild it has those hooks, but at the same time like it's got a lot of ideas. It says a lot. It's got a lot of cool things to say. It deals with a lot
Yeah.
of darker subjects, but at the same time, it's like,
In terms of
oh
like, all right, so like it's not better than Paranorman, you said, right? It's not is it
yeah,
better than Frankenweenie?
yeah. Well, he's better than Frankie Weenie.
Okay.
It's better than a lot of these ones you can toss away. It's not better than Coraline. So
Okay, cool.
there's no in Coraline.
Is it better than
I think
Monster House?
Hmm, that's a conversation that
Right?
I did not expect. Okay, so Monster House is dope. Like
Yeah,
Monster House is that
I
kind of
really like
movie.
Monster House.
Yeah, that like it's animated, but it also feels like an 80s movie, right? It feels like it's
Yes,
very
that's what it
distinctly
is, Tex.
like Goonies, right? It's the Goonies
Yes.
vibe. It's yeah. I think that's how I think that was the intent behind it, right? Like it
Yeah, because it gets so serious and so like deep
yeah,
and dark at the end of everything when everything is discovered about the house that like
yeah,
it leaves such a memorable like imprint, right? When it's
yeah,
all
yeah.
said and done. And an unexpected kind of turn of events too, because when
Yeah,
you start seeing it, it's like, oh, it's just the old man, who doesn't like us on the property kind of stuff, and then everything starts unfolding. You're like, holy crap, man, this is
yeah,
actually really good.
yeah. Monster House is dope. There's no comparison there, unfortunately. Like Wendell Wild is solid. It's just like in Coraline. I think the best way to cap it off is that in Coraline, you very distinctly remember at least one scene. If
I love
it's the
Coraline.
yeah, I'm thinking about here's a song about Coraline, right? So
Yes, I love that.
you can automatically pinpoint a scene in it where you're like, okay, here either the button eyes or the song about Coraline. You just distinctly remember one thing. And Wendell and Wild, it's tougher to do. Like it's tougher to pull
Mm.
out like one scene that instantly I'm like, oh, here's the scene where I show other people, check out this movie. It's
Okay.
yeah,
Okay.
it's cool. Like it's cool. It's got a lot of cool ideas, and in terms of like representation, it's got a cool little way of bringing that into,
Cool.
and like, and there's some really cool visuals, of course. Like in terms of stop motion, it's got a lot of cool looking stuff in it. There's well, before I crap it off real quick, there's a nun who has like these secret powers that like make her, she like moves through the earth in like a little puff of shadow, right?
Oh, that's
But
cool.
like, yeah, but it's cool seeing it in stop motion, you know what I mean? Because she like,
Yeah.
they show her going into the ground and they show the little puffs, and then like it like goes really fast or
Yeah.
whatever, and like, and when she comes up, it's super cool because it's like, wow, like this is all people doing this, so like in that sense, it never stops being like amazing.
The
But
production
like,
sense of everything, because of just like, just the stop motion of it all, is
yep,
just absolutely amazing to this day.
yes,
Because just even though the movie might not meet expectations, you just know the amount of work put into it and understand the quality of work, and that at least is visually appealing.
yes,
Um,
that's
yeah,
100% it. Like the emotions there, the production's there. It's just like, to me, the story didn't, completely connect all,
cool.
like, it didn't completely hit, and that's
Yeah,
not bad for like a Netflix streaming movie, Netflix stop animation kind of thing. We're getting a new one soon later this year with Pinocchio and Guillermo del
Del
Toro, so
Toro's
we'll be,
Pinocchio, right?
yeah, so we'll have a very clean comparison pretty soon. So maybe by then, check it out so you can compare the
Yeah,
two. We'll revisit this later. but
yeah,
um but yeah,
absolutely,
that's it
folks.
for Wendell Wild. Yeah.
That's it for Wendell Wild. So just you can wait for it. You can go watch it if you're bored. But next up in our feature presentation, and the first feature solo presentation we've had for a while, and this one for sure deserves the solo recognition itself. It is a sequel to Black Panther, Wakanda Forever. And
Yes.
we finally got it. We finally got the end of phase 4 on top of that with this movie. And honestly, for me, it's a definite pay for it. It was awesome. It was a really solid flick. We talked about it off air, and we kind of scaled it off at like what, 8.5, 9.
Yeah.
And
Yeah, I would agree.
it's a really
Yeah.
good movie. It's a really good movie, and I'm glad that it worked out. I'm glad I was not disappointed by this movie. Tex, what'd you think?
Yeah, same here. I think we went ahead and gave it the 9, because
Yes.
we give it the little bump, just putting it out there, biases and all, right? Of like
Yeah.
the Black and Brown Alliance is in here. It's in the MCU. It's very strong, and like, and outside of that too, like even going away from all of that, right? Going away from all just like the surface level stuff, like it's a total pay for it. Like,
Yeah.
if you're seeing all these
Absolutely.
Marvel movies anyway, you're seeing all these things, definitely go check it out. Don't make this the one you skip. Like,
Yeah, no,
don't,
listen, the one you should have skipped was Eternals, you know what I mean? But we'll
yeah,
break down
absolutely.
phase 4 at the end of the Black Panther conversation, because there's a lot to talk about. And
Right.
first and foremost, spoilers ahead if you haven't seen any of this stuff.
Yeah,
We won't
full spoilers.
we'll try and get to the good spoilers later on down the line if you haven't managed to skip yet. But just first and foremost, I have to say that I was a little disappointed with the CGI of the movie, just to get that out of the way, because that's one of my main gripes, and pretty much my only gripe that does bump it down to that 9, to that 8.5, right? It's because it didn't look as good as Endgame, because Endgame had so much going, and you can see all the detail in everything, and that huge battle in both Infinity War and in Endgame. And in this same aspect, Wakanda Forever has the same thing. It has a lot going on, but there are times where the CG does bring it down a little bit, because it's not as detailed and crisp as you would expect from a big Marvel movie. And I'm kind of surprised, being that this is one of their core members, like one of their flagships. I wish they would have invested a little bit more time into that CG. But that being said, other than that little gripe, man, I'm totally down. We specifically spoke about Shuri, right? And Shuri is the Black Panther, as you guys all guessed by the trailers. They pretty much kind of revealed it before the movie even came out. And you know what? Like, I'm sold on her. I'm sold. I think she needs a little bit more work in terms of having that oomph, that leadership, you know. She showed it near the end of the movie, but I think she's gonna be all right, Tex, as a new Black Panther. I think having her in the way everything ended, right? Having her kind of away from Wakanda, having her just be, hey, this is Shuri. She's the Black Panther. I'm gonna go hang out in America right now, you know, with Riri. So like we have her away from the mantle, away from that political Wakanda picture, which I think was and is a smart decision going forward, because you can just throw her anywhere. She doesn't have to really be all the time in Wakanda. So you don't have to really go and spend all that CG budget. Oh, let's go to Wakanda real quick to see what Shuri's doing. No, she's hanging out, you know, in the city right now with She-Hulk or something. You know what I mean? Like they managed to kind of put it in that aspect. I think that's super smart, because it just takes her away from all that unnecessary kind of political stuff that Wakanda always gets into because of vibranium. It's always going to be there in the background, but I like now that they introduced her as a new Black Panther. Now they kind of just have her away from the political stuff and down on the street level. So I think she's going to be all right. I was worried, Tex, about how it was all going to play out. And I think having the strong cast around her really helped out as well. What are your thoughts, Tex, on before we get into the best part of it all? What are your thoughts on Shuri before we move on to the major convo?
So like you know, leading into this, you know, one of our big things and one of the things that you've brought up too on many occasions that I totally agree with is that, like, you know, she needed to become the main character. You know, she needed to essentially become the new Black Panther. Like, yes,
yeah, exactly,
she does get the mantle, but it's like Chadwick Boseman's very real loss. Like, those are some big shoes to fill in terms of a leading presence. You know, it's like Letitia Wright had to go from supporting to like being now she is the main character. And so that's kind of what the movie's about. Like they work that into the movie of like,
yeah,
Shuri needing to become this new main person that can stand on her own, like quite literally, you know. So it's in that sense, like it does that really well. And it does that to the point where now she's set up so far apart from the rest of Wakanda, the rest of her lineage, essentially, that now it's one of those things where it's like they can do whatever they want with her from now on. They can either they can throw her into any of these shows, they can throw her into like any of these Avengers lineups. Like at this point too, it's kind of like, you know how we've been getting all these young Avengers and stuff like that. Like this movie gives us Riri Williams, who, you know, we see become like this, you know, Ironheart person, and so Shuri kind of fits that bill too. Like she's young, like yes, she's a little bit older, but she's just young enough to where like if you maybe had her as the leader of these like group of young Avengers that pops up, that wouldn't be too far outside of an idea. You know, it's like
agreed. I can see that.
Shuri, like where it's like, yeah, Shuri's actually done things, and
yeah, like also she's a group of. She is a Disney princess on top of that too, right? So she does have that status in the background to give her that little kind of oomph to leadership, right? Amongst character-wise, the young cast as well.
Yes, exactly. Like character-wise, she is like the only real leader in a young group. So it's like if you do make a Young Avengers group someday, there you go. She'd be a great person to just slot right in instead of throwing an old Avenger in there, instead of throwing like Clint Barton back in there. It's like you could have like a younger-ish person playing off of them, but still being like, no, I'm the de facto leader here leading this team. So like, but that's just one of the many ideas that they can go with. Like, because now as of the movie, we see where she ends up. She can show up in Ironheart. She can show up in like Captain Marvel's, 2. Who even knows, right?
Yeah,
but
exactly. And
they made her a utility player. Yeah.
Yes, exactly. Great point. You took the words right out of my mouth. And on top of that too, because of her status, and we know she has money, you wouldn't question how she got to certain locations. Just like, she's just there, because of the tech behind her as well. It's like, she's going to show up whenever she shows up. No one's going to question that. We know that she can get to a location if she wants to, right?
Right. We
saw that in Wakanda Forever, when she showed up in Haiti and when she showed up in the States and all that stuff. We know she can get to locations. That's one thing before we move on. Before we move off of Shuri, that's also why you can't be too hard on her as critiquing the movie, because you were like, it's hard to kind of immediately expect her to shoulder all that burden and that weight immediately. You know what I mean? Like right off the bat.
Right. The movie does take its time. Like that's the thing. That's also one of the big conversations around it, right? It's the length of the movie. It's the pace of the movie.
Yeah, it's hefty.
Shuri, it's a hefty movie. And I don't blame someone at home for saying it's too long. You can shave off like 10, 15 minutes. My thing is where, right? That's also my first instinct is where would you cut it? I mean, there are places where you can be more efficient, but in terms of straight out cutting material, I don't see it. Because with Shuri, it's very deliberate that it takes its time because we have to see Shuri become this new hero, this new complicated hero with layers, in that she's not going to do the same things as her brother. She's not going to be as noble. She's not going to be a straight up hero. She's making these young mistakes and born out of rage.
She has a rage of the Punisher in her. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So I love the fact that they brought in Michael B. Jordan to reprise Killmonger. When Shuri,
big spoilers. Here's the point where we're just gonna start letting all of it go. You're right. Michael B. Jordan coming back was a good good surprise. Legit.
That was it was much needed, because it needed again the loss of the status of someone like Chadwick Boseman. Just in presence alone, you needed somebody that can also command that, and somebody familiar as well.
Great.
And Killmonger killed it in the first. I think you ask anybody, they will agree that Killmonger was probably the best part of Black Panther. And bringing him back and having him be the role that they decided to actually go with, because this is when Shuri first takes that the heart herb, right? And then she goes into
Black Panther.
She goes into this mystical land. You know how in the first one, T'Challa saw his father and the past kings and all this other stuff, and Shuri just so happens to see Killmonger. So that's
it's dope,
which was pretty dope and very unexpected.
Yeah, and it's so smart too, because this movie works around the fact that they don't have Boseman in it. It's they find smart ways to not only address Boseman's loss. So T'Challa in the movie, he falls to a sudden illness. And they do drop hints throughout the movie that he didn't tell anybody about it, the real life Chadwick Boseman.
Exactly.
He went down like a silent king, and so not only do they outright say that in this movie, but at the same time they find so smart ways of acknowledging his presence, but also working around the fact that they can't use him. It's there's no CG Boseman. There's
by the way.
There's no like
Loved it.
there's no like Panther that Shuri looks at and it's like, oh, that's T'Challa's spirit or something like that, right? Like, you know what I mean? Like, there's no,
that's a
there's
great
no
point.
Shit like
great
that.
point, Tex, and I love that so much because I did in fact expect some kind of deep fake kind of T'Challa or some kind of deep fake,
look at Star
Chadwick
Wars, right?
Boseman T'Challa voice, right? So I definitely thought that was gonna happen like they did with Star Wars, right? With Leia and with Grand Moff Tarkin and all that stuff. And I definitely thought they were gonna do something like that. And I'm so glad that they were so smart about it. And that's big kudos to Coogler because that's definitely him understanding the situation and knowing where he is and knowing the impact that Boseman left in this universe. That, hey, how are you gonna address this without him even like being CGI'd into anything? And I think they did a fantastic job. Starting from the funeral to showing him like, I love how you got his presence with the murals they got there. It's like that was perfect because you got
the
him.
Marvel, like the Marvel logo this time. There's no fanfare or anything. It was like just silent, dude.
Yes,
and like my whole theater was silent. Like it was like, okay, everyone knew that this was the moment of silence. You know what I mean?
It was. It's like absolutely very tasteful and well done, by the way.
And then going back to that, like using Killmonger in Shuri's little space, like that's a good way of like smartly going around that. Like it's just all these ways of like working around that, and the whole movie's about that. The whole movie's about how like this supporting cast has to rise up in the face of this loss to like be these star players. And it's a good thing too because you have like actual capital M movie stars in this movie.
You have absolute
who could pull that off, right?
Yes.
Yeah, like Angela Bassett, who finally gets to flex her muscles like after the first one. Like this is clearly like her movie, like I hope she gets a nod in some way. Like I don't watch the Academy Awards, but if you want to get me to watch, you give her that nod for this. Just do it, right? Like why not?
Absolutely excellent. Her whole thing in the UN was absolutely fantastic. I love the fact that they allowed her to just flex pretty much. Just
right?
like
they allowed
just
her
go
just
in there and just queen on all these people. Just show them like how Stella got her groove back. You know what I mean? And if you go back, Bassett, like, it's funny. One of my coworkers was watching how Stella got her groove back at work, and I'm like, damn, she's so good. Like she's good.
She's really been killing it from the beginning. So
and she looks great, by the way. And then I love the fact also, like, she had the other side of Queen Ramonda, right?
Yes.
The side where she shows her natural hair, right? Like, and she's like
the mother,
broken.
like, where she gets
the
to
mother
be
side.
a mother person, And you're so right. And
she was great.
It plays into like Reeby's story too, because now like she saves Reeby's life, like she gives up her own life to save them. So now you have Ironheart forever tied to Wakanda. You have it forever tied into like Wakanda Forever story, and like this was a good showing, like for her final showing of like these Black Panther movies. Like it's good for Angela Bassett. Good for her. Like
she went down like she went down fighting, dude, what a great send-off for her. As you mentioned, Riri is tied to Wakanda, which I also really like because it explains how she can get funded. You know what I mean? How she can, in the future have all this tech and have all these connections. So I'm glad they had that connection there. And as we see at the end of all that stuff, they actually keep the not the official Ironheart suit, but the mech suit that they built over there, and they kept it in Wakanda, which I think is really smart. And it's not like just giving her this suit like Spider-Man style,
Right.
So hopefully Disney Plus does justice and gives us a good story there. But
I mean, good for that young actress too. Like
absolutely,
in terms of all these young actress debuts, like these Marvel has been absolutely killing it with all these. We'll get into the big new introduction here in a second, but like the preamble to this is that this casting still like whoever is doing the casting for all these movies. I don't know if it's Feige. I don't know if he's got like someone secret in his corner telling like actually picking these people, but like. Good on you for Dominic Thorne, for Riri Williams. Great debut, great, and then of course, right, the main feature presentation of the feature presentation, right?
Yes, the Serpent God himself, right?
Yes,
Mr. Tinacuerta, right? Who freaking just was fantastic as Namor, right?
Yeah.
He absolutely stole the show, and I think that was also not a detriment to Shuri's performance, or you know what I mean. It was more of a praise Adina Huerta's performance and how strong he was as just a presence in every scene he was in, whether he was showing his heel side or whether he was showing his baby face side. Like he just owned the scenes with all the characters involved. Whether it's those scenes where he just came really close to them, and just kind of whispered in their ear. Like that was just so brilliant.
The scene where Ramonda like calls him out and like he's just on the beach just like stare. It's like no wonder that one's in all the trailers, right? Because it's like when you get the full context of the scene, it's like holy it's like this dude is a king. And so what's great about Namor is that he's instantly like that T'Challa energy right off the bat, but just with an edge. Like it's like this is you buy right off the back that this guy has a whole kingdom on his back, and you buy that immediately. And from like the second he like sneaks up on them, he's like, "Oh, this air is so pristine," and he's like, he's so overconfident in his like his first little introduction, right?
Yeah, it's like he's out on a stroll, It's like, "Oh, hey, what's up? Oh, by the way, just to give you a heads up, this happened. Was that you? Can you help us out with that real quick?" Nah. All right, no problem. I'll see you in a bit. All right. He goes back into the water, but it was just awesome. Like, honestly, they did a fantastic job. I can't really think of such an introduction for a character like that, because honestly, it's the Namor from the comic books is such an Aquaman kind of style of a character that, the big change by making it like a Mexican descent, it's absolutely like brilliant. Like it just works.
And like
man,
the
it
whole
just
story
works.
is that like they were mutated like through this vibranium flower, kind of like heart herb style. So like that's the other thing too. There are so many like parts of the story that like mirror Wakanda. They have the vibranium, they have the heart herb. They had to form a new society to run away from like colonials, so it's like they had to run away from the Spanish, so like
that they showed like, hey, like, we've had this before you guys, like we've known about this, like this is not just exclusive to you, like please, like don't think you guys are special. And then that's what Wakanda thought this entire time. I love how they reacted to like, holy shit, like we've never faced people who have vibranium before. We've never like I love the urgency, the fact that like, hey, like this wasn't supposed to happen. You know what I mean?
Right.
So the severity level is definitely on the rise over there. And I love how that was portrayed. I love the fact that they spent a good amount of time in Talocan, right? The underwater city.
Yeah, you know what?
And it was awesome.
Arturo? Like some people complain that part is when it drags. And I personally don't see it, right?
I mean, like, it's a new it's a
what do you expect,
new environment.
Yeah. Yes, this is the MCU building, right? Like this is the world building that everybody wants. We're literally getting a place that's going to play a big role in like the MCU, right? Like
people are complaining about that, but they're going to sit through like 3 hours of freaking Avatar: The Way of Water. Are you kidding me?
I'm like, dude. And how much you want to bet that big glowing sun? That's a big glowing object. There's no way that doesn't play into something.
Has to be something
right?
about that. Yeah, because even the actual like temple itself looked very kind of spaceshipy. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
Like very alien.
it's
So
there's no way.
tons,
There's
dude.
no way. Yeah.
It's not fair. You cannot say we spent too much time here. We spent the same amount of time in Wakanda in part 1, and even the same amount of time in Wakanda in part 2. And we saw the beauty in Wakanda in part 1, in Infinity War, in Endgame, and all that stuff. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
We've seen Wakanda. Like, we've been aware of the beauty of this place, and honestly, I think that's one thing that probably could have been trimmed a little bit. Or there's this very vast landscape shot showing us the beauty of this and that. It's like, okay, we get it, it's gorgeous, but at the same time, you have to spend the time with Talokan. You know what I mean? If you are going to introduce this brand new environment with this serpent god king, it'd be great to know where the fuck he came from, you know? And
Yes.
this is exactly what we get, because they put him in a status of god, and so like, hey, he has like all these people, and he goes, hey, I have way more people like behind me than you do in your little Wakanda here, you know, because Wakanda to them is just a city, you know, like Talokan is Talokan to them, you know.
Yeah, Talokan is the ocean. Like, that's the thing, right? It's like, that's why I don't get the complaints outside of like maybe they're in bad faith. You know, it's like, maybe it's because you don't like what Talokan looks like or is, you know, and it's hard for me not to think that way, right? Because it's like, no, that's the part where I was most interested in. Like, I wanted to find out more about Namor. Like, this is when people started saying, oh, like, many of the reviews I've seen, like, this is where it drags. This is where I'm like, no, but we need his origin story, right?
That's poppycock, bro. Because, like, listen, without Chadwick Boseman, this movie was gonna have its challenges, right?
Yeah.
They brought in this new character here where they thought correctly, in my opinion, that, hey, this guy's gonna be mage here. You know what I mean?
You're right. We can anchor in a lot of like stuff
like
on him.
We have, because they knew. It's like, I go back to Letitia Wright. You know what I mean? She's not a leading actress. You know what I mean? Like, it's not like you can put everything on her directly at this very moment in time and let her kind of take the reins. She had a lot of help. Lupita did a great job around her, as well as M'Baku's character. I forgot his name, as well as Angela Bassett. So she had this cast of characters around her, including, you know, Tino Huerta as Namor, which, honestly, that was what kind of held everything in place until Letitia Wright was ready to kind of take that role. You know what I mean? Like, it was showing a leader until she can become a leader, you know?
Yeah, this was essentially another part 1. Like, this was Namor's
origin story, as you mentioned. Yep.
This is Namor's origin story, Shuri's origin story, M'Baku's too, really, because now M'Baku's going to take over as Wakandan king.
M'Baku wants to be king. Yeah, I can't wait for that. But which, again, another great support piece in this whole movie, because they knew that this had to be, as you mentioned, this ensemble kind of piece where everyone had to kind of rise up and do their thing, you know? And the addition of Namor into the MCU, folks, it's gonna be mage, because you guys know Marvel.
It feels big already. Yeah,
yeah, absolutely, right? Absolutely.
Because that was my thought. My thought next was like, where does he come back? You know, what do you do with him? And because he's such like he's tied into Wakanda, but also anyone who messes with the ocean will get his attention, right?
Yes. And also remember, his existence was never really put on broadcast there to, like, you know, the FBI or any of those people like that. So they're still hidden. That was one of the first things that Namor said. It's like, hey, if you tell anybody about us, we're gonna kill you. and legit, like, everyone took that super seriously, you know, because they had chances to be like, hey, listen, there's this underwater kingdom guy. They're like, no, I can't tell you, or I'm gonna kind of die here. So I'm glad they kind of stuck to their guns there, and we still have that on the background in the MCU.
Yeah, and at the same time, I'm glad he sticks to his word and straight up kills who needs to be killed. Like
Oh,
the
yes.
line of like bury your dead, mourn them. I'll be back in a week to finish the job. Basically, is like that
Brutal.
is
That's
that
so
is brutal
fucking
stuff,
brutal,
right?
man. It's awesome. Yeah, that's good like evil God, evil king shit, just
Yeah, he's like
dominant,
bury your dead, mourn your families, and I'll be back in a week. Yeah,
It's like I'll be back to finish the job. I'm a little tired. It's like, guys, I'm hungry. Let's get out of here real quick and get a bite to eat at the Chili's, and then we'll come back and and just mess them up again, dude. It was awesome. And as you mentioned, he was a man of his word. He was a man of action. And that was what was very impressive about the character itself, and the fact that when he was on screen and he was talking to you, it's like, hey, like just pay attention because
dude.
this is like
yes,
this is shit's gonna happen,
dude. And even his attendants too, like Atuma and Nomura. Like even in any other movie, they would have just been henchmen that got like killed off in their own little side battles or whatever. But no, not only are they both alive, but they both had their own like personalities too. Like
yes,
like Atuma and Okoye had their whole movie thing, where they were like, where they fought a bunch of times, and then they respected each other as warriors.
Amora was impressive because behind every strong man, there's an even stronger woman. She was like, yo, we gotta beat these guys out, and he was like, yo, relax.
Yeah, right at the end of the movie, like the big
like Zeus said, relax, baby cake, she was like, yo, why aren't we out there? Why aren't we like slaughtering them? I want their heads. Like they killed one of ours. Let's go, yo, dude. I can't wait for them to expand on this. As you guys know, Fantastic Four and Namor have been attached by the hip for a very long time because Namor always wants to hang out with Sue. So let's see what happens with that, right?
Sue Storm is in trouble with this number.
Oh boy,
Jesus!
We gotta see who they cast. We gotta see who they cast. Like, can you compete versus Namor? Versus Namor? No. No, you're in trouble, my man. But that being said,
if it's John Krasinski again, dude, no chance.
You got no chance, especially when Namor comes out of the water, when just ready for battle, all wet and shit. Yeah, it's like, let's do this with his chest puffed out like a penguin. Let's do this. Oh, I love it, man. I love it, and I really I am very curious, Tex, what they're gonna do with him. And as I mentioned before,
he's also another utility player, right? Where
he's also a mutant, right? And he says it as well, Like, hey, I'm a mutant, and I'm like, oh my god, here we go, So a lot of things are on the horizon. And as I mentioned before, Wakanda Forever is the end of Phase 4. It comes off, it wraps up in a neat little package. It finishes off very strong.
Like by sending out, like by doing one final tribute to Boseman, and by giving him, like, T'Challa too, by giving him one final goodbye. It's like a goodbye to the phase. It's like,
absolutely,
okay, this is where things are really going to start moving forward. This was the final little emotional thing that everybody needed. And to
and to your point real quick, T'Challa, the character T'Challa was the last one attached to like that original set of Avengers, to that original phase 3 cast, you know what I mean? The Endgame cast, because they're all kind of not there anymore. Strange is the only one hanging out in the back, but Strange does strange things, so he'll be out and about off world,
he's in his dark dimension, whatever. And then now we have even a new T'Challa. Like there's a
we got T'Challa Jr.
For people crying about like recasting him or whatever, but there you go. Like in a couple of years, they'll just time jump him and be like, oh, okay, he's old enough to be like a Black Panther Jr. now. So like
exactly. So there's a lot of things, and this ended in this Phase 4. It started off a little slow, right? But it ended strong.
So
that being said,
that being said, let's wrap up this whole episode, this conversation with a look back at Phase 4 and a quick ranking, because like you said, Phase 4, it started off rough, But through it, we realized, you and I have talked about this a lot of times, where it's like, this is the status quo. This is the
Yep.
rebuilding period. This is the time in between huge events, right? We
Yes.
needed the issue ones. We needed all the issue ones, all these new series, right? We needed new Black
It's
Panther
true.
Shuri, issue 1. Namor, issue 1. We needed the She-Hulk, issue 1. You know what I mean?
Yeah, again, we needed a new set of heroes, right? Because we
Yes.
lost all the heroes from the first three phases, you know. So now, like, you know, using Disney Plus as an avenue, as well as their movies, they've built up this new roster of characters to you know, to get to know
Yeah.
and to get to love.
It's quite literally a different MCU. Like, this whole phase 4 has been about expansion, like in the movies themselves, in the stories themselves, but also in terms of the projects. We've had like tons of other projects. We had
Yep.
now TV shows in the mix, and now here is where things start. So we're gonna rank the movies here because it's just easier to do. There are a
Oh
ton of
yeah,
like
we're
TV
not touching the
shows.
shows. Yeah,
Yeah.
we're not
There are
touching
a
them
ton of
shows.
TV shows. There are like, so yeah, the best thing to do is just to
Theatrical
go over.
releases.
Yes. And okay, we found out, you and I like talked about this beforehand, but
Yes, we did. We found out we have
yeah,
quite the similar list. So
yeah. So we'll just kind of unite them, right? So we'll start at the bottom. Both of our choices was Eternals. You
yes,
know, I
only
mean,
because of a lack of connection to everything else, and just kind of a lack of understanding of what it was needed from them. You know?
yeah, it's not only lack of connection, but lack of interesting stuff on its own,
Oh, yeah,
right?
just lack of
Like,
everything in that movie.
yeah, like lack of being interesting on its own. And you know, whoever likes Eternals, good on you. I'm glad you enjoyed it, but
That's
we'll see where
wild.
that goes.
Enjoy that.
Yeah.
At least it's there for you. You know, go watch
Yeah.
that.
Second to last in let's see, out of like 7th, I believe, right? Yeah. So 6 out of 7, 6th place, Thor: Love and
Yes.
Thunder. So
Unfortunately, right, man, we really wanted this one to be kind of cool because of what the because of Natalie Portman coming back and the you know and
yes.
all that stuff, but it was just a bit too much, you know,
Yeah,
a bit too
I'm good on
much.
like it's so rough. Like, I'm good on Thor movies. Like,
Yeah, yeah,
I don't want to see a Thor
agreed.
5. Like, if you bring him back, make it just ensemble. Like, I don't
Yeah,
want
if you
any
bring him
his
back,
ensemble either. You know?
just
Yeah,
make him the big gun, you know, like who shows up.
yeah,
Hey, listen, we need help. I know somebody off world, and Captain Marvel brings in Thor or something. You know what I mean?
right. Yeah, make him on a
Yeah,
nearby
something.
planet.
Yeah,
Yeah, because I don't want to see his extended cast play off each other either. You know, it was that, like, it left that bad of a taste in my mouth, dude.
it was
Like,
too much text. It was
yeah,
um, too much too soon, and just too much. You know.
right.
Anyways, we move on. At number 5, we put down Black Widow
Yes.
as the movie there. We thought it was entertaining. There are some scenes there, especially at the end, which were just kind of there just for the fodder of it all. But I thought it was a good outing for Scarlett Johansson, and I wish they would have released this kind of, you know, in the middle of everything and not at the end after she died in freaking Endgame. You know?
Yeah, and that's why it's so low on the list, because in terms of like enjoyment, it's like, oh, like, I'm glad you gave us Florence Pugh's Yelena, but like,
Yes.
as we've already seen in like Hawkeye and stuff like that, we're gonna like her in other projects, you know.
Yes.
So it's like, we're gonna like her more in other things. So do we give it all the credit here? And that's why it's like close to the bottom of the list.
And then it sucks
It's
too
just
because like we get some more solid, Widow from Johansson, and I'm like, damn, I want to kind of see more of you, you know.
and that's it. Yeah, from Scarlett
Yeah,
Johansson. Yeah.
but
So
then she's
and
dead. So then
yeah,
we move
yeah,
on.
exactly. So moving on to 4th place is Shang-Chi and the Legend of the Ten Rings. Shang-Chi started out phase 4, good way.
Mhm.
You know, it was a good little reintroduction to Marvel. It was a good way to pass up Endgame, because it's like, oh, Shang-Chi's clearly at the center of like the rookie in the new whatever Avengers lineup we're gonna get. But as Phase 4 went on, we were like, oh, there are going to be a lot of rookies in the Avengers.
Yes,
and
they're all gonna be rookies, except for freaking Captain America, who's Falcon now.
Right.
I
so
mean,
like,
except for Falcon, who's Captain America now.
yes, vice versa. Scratch that, reverse it. Right. So, but yeah, like in terms of the scope of everything else, like Shang-Chi as a movie, fight scenes were cool, but then it's like, then you had that Act 3 like giant CG monster.
Yeah, with
like,
the dragon and stuff like that. It gets really out there. And you know what, though? For a character I had no clue about, they made me actually enjoy it and actually like the character. So kudos to that. But it does get a little wacky at the end. But I do like the fact that it seems like, Wong pulled him into something like off the bat pretty much. So because of the power of the 10 rings and stuff, he's going to be involved heavily. And that's pretty dope. So what, moving on to, what is it, number 4?
No, that was number 4. So moving on to 3, Doctor
3.
Strange and the Multiverse of Madness. That was both our number 3 because it
was fun. I loved it.
Yeah,
I enjoyed
it.
Thoroughly.
That's honestly it, right? Like it's just fun. Like Sam Raimi
did a great job with the movie. He made it dark, but still made it fun. It wasn't all brooding. It wasn't the Batman. You know what I mean? It was a Doctor Strange who is now aware of alternate universes and of different stuff, and it was just really well done. The practical makeup was great, especially on the zombie Strange. We got introduced to America Chavez, and she's going to be great. She's another young actress, another part of their young roster. We got more involvement from Wong officially in everything.
We got Elizabeth Olsen, who got to like go ham with it.
Yes, we got crazy House of M. Wanda.
Like it was just a fun movie. And in terms of like stacking it against the other ones, it's like, well, which one did we have more fun with, right? And it was obviously Doctor Strange. So moving on to the top 2. So this is where you and I are still debating. You and I are still debating this because like,
yes,
but ultimately I do agree with you. But we are like, I'm gonna put an asterisk next to like,
we clashed because I really, really think No Way Home was the best flick on this Phase 4 roster. Tex argues that Wakanda Forever. So Tex, why Wakanda Forever? What is it about Wakanda Forever that surpasses No Way Home for you? And I'll tell you why No Way Home surpasses Wakanda Forever for me.
Okay, so I know it's tough like arguing because it's like, oh, is it recency bias? Oh, because I just saw it, it's immediately in my head. But I think in terms of what it's able to accomplish, in terms of like, I also give it the credit for like existing, and that's it's kind of like a small miracle that they were able to not only recover from Boseman's real death,
very
recover from the lack of this T'Challa character, who you and I said on many occasions before his passing that like he would have been the next Avengers leader. Like
imagine him versus freaking Lee Majors, like face to face, back and forth. Man, dude, him versus Namor would have been absolutely. Oh my god, dude! So that that's a great point. That's exactly what they were missing. Like that's such you're absolutely right, Tex. Like that is a fucking miracle that this thing even came out as successful as it did.
And not only that, but it was at the height of the pandemic, and you also had Letitia Wright, who made some like anti-vax comments, like from
and she also I think broke her leg or something, right?
Yes,
or other.
So like there were a lot of signs in the universe saying that, hey, this is probably a bad idea that you're rolling with. But the fact that they reworked the story to make it work so well as it does, and to me, Namor's introduction is so like Phase 4. Like this is like
so Mage.
This feels like Phase 4. This is like the cap of like, this is a string of introductions and we got the biggest, they saved the best for last, right? This is to me, that's why like, recency bias and all that, but like to me, that's why I walked out of there and I was like, that felt good. This was complete. This was like, length or whatever. I was like, I had an experience in that. But also in the same vein, Arturo, I'm totally going to understand where you're coming from too, right? With No Way Home.
Listen, No Way Home, aside from like what the 20-year story that was told in it, culminating in gathering Tobey Maguire and Andrew Garfield into the same movie at the same time, in the same scenes, talking to one another, which again, that's a miracle as well. Because that was like, no, they're not gonna do that, and because of Fox and Sony and all that stuff, they definitely pulled that off in a way where it was fucking just awesome. Me in particular, Tex.
Sorry. It's
no. Finish.
No.
Yes.
It's the multiverse movie. The only one we get in Phase 4, really, because Multiverse of Madness. Yeah, some of it, but this was the one that
all that hype around multiverse, and we got it just at the jump. You know what I mean? Instead of all the way throughout. But honestly, man, it's just the performances of Tom Holland. Tom Holland, and as well as Willem Dafoe, who came back as Green Goblin. He was just absolute like heel. I love the fact that they were able to just, hey, what do we do for a bad guy here? You know what I mean? Because like, how are we gonna just top anything we've done? Because he's been attached to freaking Thanos, right? You know what I mean? So like, hey, so they brought back the rogues gallery from the previous ones, including the actors. And it was, again, it's just an amazing feat that they made this production happen. And just the performance of Tom Holland after he loses Aunt May, and he's just as Spider-Man alone was, as honestly, I think is in Wakanda Forever, the strongest performances obviously are from Namor and from Bassett. You know what I mean? And after that, it trails off as an ensemble, kind of playing off each other. Here, like Tom Holland fucking leading man that shit the entire way. And it was impressive. It was impressive because I didn't think I'd be able to enjoy him more as Peter Parker than I did after this movie. It's go for it.
Yeah. So no. So ultimately, I do concede. Like, No Way Home does get our official top spot in Phase 4, not only because it is a miracle in the other sense of the word in what it's able to do, but also it's just hard to compete with the finale. Like, it's a finale that's also a part one of like a bigger story, right? So it's much like Wakanda Forever is a part one, but also a finale. No Way Home is that, but also carries the weight of 20 years and 3 movie Spider-Man franchises. It gives them all closure. It gives Tom Holland closure, but also starts something new. And for that, I do concede. Like, as much as I was,
let's not forget,
no,
it's the 2021 winner for best movie in the Goldies, right?
So
it's definitely, if you rewatch it now, yes, it is long, but I think it still holds in terms of just going through the whole thing. It's like, damn, it's pretty good.
And it's just what it's able to do. Like, for the same, as much as I give Wakanda Forever credit for what it does, I have to do the same for No Way Home. Like, I have to be real, and I have to be like, no, it was able to do just as much, but also gets to the benefit of being a character we followed for a long time already. So there we go.
Yes,
that's our Phase 4 rankings, everybody.
Go watch Wakanda Forever, out in theaters now. It's a pay for it. If you can watch it on IMAX, do. I was looking for IMAX showtimes. There was none available, surprising, but supposedly it was filmed for IMAX. And if you can witness some of this action in IMAX, I highly recommend it. Hopefully the CG looks a little better on those screens. But folks, thank you so much for listening. This has been episode 130 of the Morgan Official CorpseFeed podcast. I am Arturo Padilla, the guy behind the face. With me always is Mr. Nick Valdez. And a big shout out to Mr. Glenn Murawski for the music, Mr. Delvirus for the artwork. A big shout out to you guys for listening. We have 129 of these things for you guys in the archive. And they're all there for you all the time. So please like, subscribe, comment, share as much as you like. Also find us on YouTube. We are live or live adjacent, I should say, every Thursday at 4:20 on Twitch, on Twitter Live, on Facebook Live, on YouTube Live. And go drop a comment, go review us. We highly appreciate you guys. Find us on all your podcasting stream locations, and also, you know, rate, subscribe, like, all that good stuff. And remember, folks, please always remember, it is a scary world out there, but we are here to absolutely walk you through it.